Hey, you guys, welcome back to A&J Podcast. I am your girl A, and this is my partner J, and we're back for another episode of A&J Podcast.
Yes, sir. Welcome back. Glad to be with y'all. Ready to pick up right where we left off, like we dropped something.
So today's topic, I thought would be a little bit fun. It's kind of based on some things I've been reading, conversations. I stay off the void of Twitter sometimes, so I feel like it goes on a rabbit hole. But I find a lot of people are like weighing in on marriage these days and their thoughts and opinions. And I think with the generational changes, a lot of people are veering away from marriage for various reasons. They don't believe in the tradition of marriage. They don't believe, from a religious aspect in marriage. There's many reasons. Some people are just like, look, I don't want to be tied down to nothing that I'm not truly happy in. With divorces and marriages being so public, especially in the age of social media, and people just having like a window into people's lives of what marriage really looks like for some people is really just scaring people off from marriage, and that's totally understandable. So the question today is, do A and J miss being single? So we could just dive right into that and get into our thoughts and talk about the pros and cons of marriage for us and the pros and cons of being single.
I think we gotta word that a little bit differently too. Like, clearly, if we miss being single, we wouldn't be married this long.
I don't agree.
Well, that's my opinion of it. Now, are there aspects of being single that I may miss? Maybe. Or even moments, maybe, that there's things about my single life that I enjoyed, that I reflect upon fondly sometimes, and I miss doing those things. And for me, it will probably be more about like space, or just having that clarity of mind that you get when you don't have distractions outside of yourself. From a relationship standpoint, I can't say that there's anything that about being single that I miss. Like, I don't miss dating. I don't miss various partners or anything like that. I enjoy the stability of being married, having a wife to come home to, a consistent partner, a consistent sex life, a safe sex life. Not that it's all about the physical or anything like that, but just having that peace of mind, like, where I don't have to worry, because when you're single, you getting tested for STDs and AIDS and stuff like that, like every other month, something like that. You know what I mean?
Depending on your lifestyle.
It's just for the peace of mind. You know what I mean? I was going to the free spot to get the STD panels and all that stuff. Grab the condoms or whatever.
Spring Garden.
Yeah, for real. Like, going over there, getting the stuff done, because it was peace of mind. And I remember, posting those little test results and stuff up, like, it was a diploma or something like that, like
clean grade A steak, okay,
right, like a college
FDA
degree
approved.
or something. You know what I'm saying? So, but like, I don't miss that. Like, I don't have to worry about them scares and stuff like that. So that isn't anything. But there are times where I look at where I'm at in terms of career goals and stuff like that, and I do think if I was single, I would be in a different space career-wise than I am today. And not that I'm unsatisfied with where I'm at career-wise, but I do think I look at other people's progress, and the biggest difference I notice between myself and them are that they either have significantly smaller families or no family, you know what I mean? Maybe they have a wife and no kids. Maybe they have nobody. They're single. They're only like dating or whatever like that. And so that has allowed them to put their career first. Flip side of that, though, I think when it comes to my faith and my career, I don't think without my wife that I would be where I am in terms of my faith. And I think my career has also taken a backseat to that. So if I was single, the opposite would probably be true, right? Like my faith probably would be taking a backseat to my career and my career goals and my career progress and stuff like that. And hopefully I wouldn't have any children. I'm not 100% confident in the fact that I wouldn't have. Like I would have.
Leave that one alone.
Yeah, if I was single, I would have preferred to be childless and focusing on me more. But those are the things I think about, and my hobbies. Maybe my hobbies would be, I would be more engrossed in those things too. Like, but where do you want to go with this? What do you have to say just on the initial thought of it?
Do I miss being single? Yes and no, and not like I'm dying to be single, but like he said, there's components of being single that I enjoyed. First things first, the aspects of single life that I do miss. And for me, I never really felt single in my adult life. Let's be real, I had a child already. So while I was a single mom, I had a responsibility. So though I had certain freedoms that came, with being single, it still wasn't really freedom. Because I still had a responsibility to a child. And that played a huge part in how I moved and things that I did. I think the biggest thing for me, is sometimes just having a shared space. I grew up with 3 siblings, and mom and a dad in the house for the most part. At some point, my parents got divorced, and, it was still the rest of us. I was always sharing a room, always having to learn community living and things like that. And even fresh into my first apartment, I had roommates and stuff, but roommates are different, than living at home with your parents and living at home with your siblings. And so there wasn't a lot of like us clocking each other and having to worry about, and like communal spaces was a shared responsibility, but our bedrooms and stuff were our own personal space. So I would say for me, it's when you are dating someone and you get married and you move in together, you are beyond just communal spaces. Like your bedroom is now a shared space, unless you're a couple that does not sleep in the same bedroom together. But I think just having to learn to adjust. When you're sharing space in a marriage, it's very, very intimate. So moods are affected by one another. Organization might be different from one another. So those were things that were really hard to adjust to for me, especially, once we moved in together. We moved in together before marriage. But I think that's probably like my biggest gripe, if I'm completely honest, that I have about missing being single. And even then, like I had a child who invaded my space all the time. Like she slept in the bed with me and stuff like that. So it wasn't like I ever really had like my space to myself. And I would say there's a modicum of selfishness that you're allotted when you're single, because you don't have somebody else to consider. You don't have other people to think about. Again, like I mentioned, I had a child already, so that was slightly different for me. But in marriage, it is my belief, whether people agree or not, that there is a headship and that the husband is the headship. So, and that's a lesson I did not always go by, okay? And made my marriage very stressful when I wasn't going by that. But having that headship means that there's always someone to consult. And so there's no decisions, like especially major ones, that I make without running it past him. Sometimes I can be on autopilot and like I'll make a decision and be like, I'm gonna do this, and then I have to like stop myself and be like, no, I need to talk to Bear about it or whatever. I think in that aspect, I miss sometimes just being able to operate autonomously and just be like, I'm gonna go do A, B, and C, and not, run it past Jared out of respect. However, It's not like, in the beginning it was harder for me versus now. I would say I miss the quickness sometimes being able to make a decision because I'm probably, in a sense, more rash and more impulsive than he is.
Quick on the trigger.
Yeah. So he and I mean, and the same thing that I might miss is the same thing that I actually appreciate from him as well because he has taught me, and I can say that openly, he has taught me how to pause, think things through, rationalize things, and not be as impulsive. And this is for me being a pretty logistical person, being a very logical person. I'm still like, I'm going to do this, boom, 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 and because it just makes sense, I'm going to do it. So that was probably harder at the beginning of our relationship. There are very few moments where I'm just like, ugh, I just wish I could go do this. The way I want to do it, how I want to do it, when I want to do it without having to, consult with him. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing about being single, I guess, would be not having to worry about somebody else's feelings. Because that's a full-time job. It's a full-time job all the time. How you move, how you operate, you always have to consider your partner. And not that that's a bad thing, but if you, and I tell people all the time, if you have selfishness within you, which I've shared very openly, I definitely did in the beginning of our marriage, marriage is not for you. If you're not willing to work around that or get over it or get past it, stay single. Because it's a lot of having to consider someone else over yourself. But so I guess I'm really around to, there's really not much I miss about being single.
I think you made me think about some things though, because there's some overlap there in terms of what you said you missed, but also like when you talk about having to consult with someone else, like in respect to headship and all that stuff like that, that's a two-way street though, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's not a dictatorship. It's not like before she makes a decision, I have to approve it. It's like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think about it? And for the most part, I'm in support of, the decisions that she makes. I try to just ask questions to provoke thought, to be like, well, did you think about this? Did you think about how this is going to affect that? How are you going to acquire this? Like, what's your plan for this, that, and the third? Like, you know what I mean? I'm more of like, I act more of like a consultant in those situations as opposed to like the final vote on it or whatever, right? Like, I want to, unless it's like something crazy that I think, or something that I think is going to be to our detriment in any way, which there's very rarely like something like I would be like, oh, that's crazy. I can't even think of anything. But like,
yeah, I'm a lot tamer now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not out here really suggesting the most. Which I will say this. I think age plays a big factor in missing singleness versus not.
Age plays.
We were much younger when we got married. I was 24 when I got married, and so there was still, as much as I wanted a relationship and partnership, and I wanted to be with him, I was still young, you know what I mean? And was still like, I wanted to go out. I wanted to party. I wanted to do all of the things. And it was hard for me to like have to find that balancing act of, you can't go to all of the parties. You cannot go out to all of the things. You do have a husband that you need to, and children. So I think in the closest to the beginning years of our marriage, when I was much younger, in my early 20s, just specifically, it was harder. I probably missed being single more back then than I do currently because of those reasons. But again, like I said, that was more of a selfish space of just wanting to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. As I got older, your perspective changes, your maturation level changes, your maturity level changes. And I had to be open to counsel. I had to be open to biblical counsel and spiritual counsel and just good counsel from people who loved me and cared about me, who wanted to see me thrive and flourish in my marriage, and understanding that There is beauty in being single. The Bible calls it a gift. However, there's beauty in being married too. I had to decide, really, like, what did I want more? Did I want this so-called freedom to do what I want to do, or did I want to nourish and nurture my marriage? So ultimately, I knew I wanted that partnership. I knew I wanted to spend my life with this person. And I think ultimately that's why I really don't miss being single. Being single afforded me opportunities to go out with different guys and go party and drink and do whatever I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, how I wanted to do it. I think your singleness is really contingent. How you operate in your singleness is contingent upon where you're at in your life. For me, at the time where I was single, I wasn't in the best place in my life, so I was still making like really poor choices and entertaining people I shouldn't have been entertaining, and I think that made my singleness more miserable than it should have been. And I have found more peace of mind in having partnership. And so when I hear like people's commentary on marriage, I kind of laugh, because I'm not one of those people who's like, well, if you've never done this, you shouldn't have an opinion, because I don't necessarily think you have to be married to have an opinion on marriage.
No, because we all grow up around marriage.
Exactly. We see it in some way, shape, or form. What shapes our views on marriage is usually the relationships we see around us.
The quality of the relationships you grow up around.
Exactly. What I will say is I definitely had a mix of marriages that I got to see growing up. But what I envisioned marriage to be wasn't necessarily realistic. Because I'd always been kind of taught, like, I'd always viewed it as the man is in charge. You know what I mean? Like, he's responsible for anything. And he is solely responsible for my happiness. And so on and so, like, these are the ideologies that I had about marriage, which were not accurate. He is not responsible for my happiness. He aids in it. He complements it. But, you know, who I am as an individual, that inner work belongs to me. Really, I had to learn that marriage is a partnership. And I really had to, I mean, the Bible even states that marriage will have tribulation. I had to understand that marriage is not going to be a sitcom. It may have its some kind of moments. It's not a fairy tale. And above all else, it's work. You can have a laundry list of the perfect me and how they're going to treat you and what they're going to do and all that stuff. But is it realistic? You're entitled to your opinion about what you want and what type of mate you want to be with. But I had to adjust my thinking, because I had to think about, what did I really want out of a partner? What did I really want out of a marriage? I knew, despite whatever imperfections Jay may have had or I may have had, and I've said this a million times, he was a good person. He was a good man, even at his faults and his flaws. He was always for me. You know what I mean? My growth, my progression, even if we were not together. And that was just such a strong quality that stuck out to me, that somebody in this world, aside from myself, wanted to see me do better. And not me, not my parents, but like was interested in who I was as a person, what goals I was trying to attain. And where I couldn't fill in the gaps and like maybe couldn't come up with the answer, was helping me come up with those answers. I started to really think on those things. It's easy to pick apart marriages, right? It's easy from the outside looking in to be like, oh, I would never do this. And I was one of those people. Like, I was one of those people, when I get married, it's not going to look like this. I would never do A, B, and C. And then I ended up doing things I said I was never going to do. I ended up having feelings about things in my marriage that I never thought I would. Because you don't know, honestly, until you're in it. Yeah, and that's the reality.
And I think being on the outside and looking in, it is really convenient to have all these black and white ideas of how you think things will go, should go, what you'll accept, what you won't accept. But in the heat of the moment, how you respond is not necessarily going to be the way you thought you would, you know, and that can be in a positive or a negative way, right? But I know over the course of our relationship, there's been things that I've done that I would have never expected to be my response. Not to feel certain ways, not to, you know, be willing to do certain things that I thought as a single person, oh, I would never do this. As a married person, especially a mature married person who's been married for over a decade, like things that I realize a lot more now that some of my old way of thinking was childish and immature and short-sighted. You know what I mean? Now there's things that I realize I was doing because of the perception of them, like how they would look to other people or how I thought they would make me look to other people. Whereas at the end of the day now, like I just want to be happy. I want to have a healthy relationship, a successful marriage, you know what I mean? And I want to be there with my wife for my children. So like those three things are like the most important thing to me now versus how somebody else may look at me from the outside or assume me doing this means that or whatever, you know what I mean? I don't care about other people's perception as long as my household is flourishing. And you know, that a lot of that comes from being secure in my marriage, being secure in what we have as a family. But I do think one of the things you said though is that considering another person's feelings, you know what I mean? I think that's something that we all probably miss. Yeah. The aspect of being single versus in a relationship, because I think the way we were raised is almost like polar opposites and stuff. Like she had siblings that she grew up with, I didn't. You know what I mean? I was a single child by myself, although I have a sister. We weren't raised together, you know what I mean? So it was mostly me by myself. I had cousins and stuff that I was around. Me and my aunt are probably like brother and sister in a lot of ways, but like for the most part, it was me. Like there was a large period of, especially my, formative years, where it was just me figuring out things on my own, trying to figure out how to navigate outside as an only child, you know what I mean? So I really didn't have to consider how other people felt. Even when it came to my parents, like I didn't want them to catch me doing certain things or be aware that I was involved in certain stuff. But like for the most part, I didn't have to worry about what anybody thought, because other than me, how it affected me, could I tolerate the consequences of my actions? And when you get into a relationship, a lot of that's probably the hardest part, like where you really have to learn that synergy and compromise and realize like, I can't do this because this is going to make her feel like that. Or if I do this, I'm not going to be able to do that for her. You know what I mean? Those type of trade-offs, and trying to find out, well, what is acceptable? What can you tolerate? What can't you tolerate? What is a deal breaker for you? What isn't? Where can we meet in the middle on things? And I'm not gonna lie, there's sometimes where you naturally just want to be selfish, especially as somebody who's the only child who didn't have to compromise very much growing up. Learning how to share as an adult, especially emotionally, can get complicated at times. It can get frustrating where you'd be like, I don't want to do that though. Like, I don't have to. And then you tack on the fact that I'm a man on top of that, where it's like, so what? I'm the man, I can do what I want. Like, you know what I mean? And one of the things I like about, what'd you say?
Terrible.
One of the things I like about her though is like, there was always like a challenge there. Like, you know what I mean? It was never like she's not somebody who I could steamroll over. You know what I mean?
Nah.
It was always a back and forth. Like we had to compromise because it was like when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Like we had to find some way to meet in the middle because neither one of us wanted to bend. You know, at times.
Yeah. I think you made a really good point when you said about how we were raised being polar opposite. I think in some aspects we kind of can relate because I was the youngest. So my experience as a youngest child, well, if you let my siblings tell it, I was a lot more spoiled because I was the last child out of 4. So by the time I came around, my parents were much older, retired. And so I probably, in a lot of aspects, got treated differently just off the strength of that. And so while there was 4 of us in the house, sibling wise, but me and my brother were like the closest in age. We were 2 years apart. So like I really didn't have like crazy interactions with like both of my older sisters because they were 4 and 6 years older than me. So like our worlds very rarely collided as we're coming up. So and my brother, he and I, we had different lives. We had different friends. We probably didn't really reconvene and start really hanging with each other like that until like I was in high school or whatnot. Partially, not really even in middle school. Like we talked to each other, but I spent a lot of time by myself. And not having to share because I didn't have to. Like my older sisters were kind of gone by the time I was hitting like my high school years. My brother was a boy, so it wasn't like we had to share things with each other. We each had our own space. We had our own set of friends. So in a lot of ways, I was kind of like by myself. Even though the second oldest sister, she was like, she lived at home. Like she was never there. You know what I mean? She was 4 years older than me. So I think by the time I was in high school, she was graduated. You know what I mean? She was an adult. So in that respect, I think he and I kind of have those same mentalities about not wanting to share, not wanting to compromise because we kind of like, I understand, on a technicality, no, I was not an only child, but I do understand the propensity to kind of operate in this space of like, I don't have to consider other people because I've never had to. I think when it comes to marriage, media entertainment has made it seem like it's supposed to be this one beautiful, thing, the picturesque wedding and the this, that, and the third, and if there's any signs of trouble, get up and leave and go. And that's not really how it works. You can talk a good game about how I would just get up and leave if a person does A, B, and C, but the reality is when your life is so intimately tied to somebody, it's not as easy to just get up and walk away because something has happened that's a disservice to you. You will be surprised what you learn to cope with, stick through, stick by, work through, because that love becomes so overwhelming. It's now bigger than yourself. Now, in every situation, it's not necessarily a good thing, but in one way, there's no direct harm being caused to you. You really have decisions to make in your marriage about how you're going to work through things. And I think ultimately for me, I absolutely cannot. And I say this often because I really be wanting people to fathom and understand. It's not that I've never loved another man before, because that would be a lie. It's not that I've never been in love with another person before, because that would be a lie. But when I think about, because my therapist had me do this, could you see, realistically, ever being with any of your exes, your partners, in the same capacity that you see with Jay? First of all, when I close my eyes and try to envision, it made me want to throw up a little bit, just because the people I dated. But I could not see that. There is not a man who could fill Jay's shoes. And that's the reality for my situation. I can't speak for other people. Even when he's pissed me off, made me mad, made me feel like I wanted to be single, the reality is I would be comparing everybody to him. I would be trying to make them be him and fulfill me in a way that he does that no one else can. And it was that realization that made me realize, like, this is really where I want to be.
And I think you brought up a good point when you said, like, because it's a lot different going through stuff with somebody and having to tolerate it versus being willing to work through situations. And I think that's kind of what makes or break things. Like, tolerating means, like, there's no compromise. Like, this is who I am, this is what I'm giving you, this is what you got to deal with. Versus working through something. Like, when you try and work something out, you're trying to find a common ground. Like, Kurt, where you're bending, like, that you're becoming that Venn diagram. Like, you know, you're meeting in the middle and finding a space that you can cooperate in. Whereas, and I think that's really what, you know, a successful relationship is all about. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Finding ways to work through
it's
the
finding
things
ways
that bother you,
to work through,
frustrate you.
but it's also like, I know this sounds silly, I used to flirt, like, in front of the guys I dated, just to see what their reaction would be. Because we all know flatulence is a human thing. But there's, like, this stigma for women. It's ingrained in us from the time we're growing to be young ladies. You don't flirt in front of men. You don't do it. It's rude. It's disgusting. Step on. Like, there are women who I know would hold their number twos till they got home because they didn't want to flatulate in front of their mate. So I used to, like, poop just to see, like, you know, what the reaction would be. And he never batted an eye. Did he be like, "Child, you stink"? Like, yes. But he never made me feel like less of a woman. And here's what I'm gonna say about that. I've had surgery. I had weight loss surgery. We all know it. Weight loss surgery comes with the rerouting of your intestinal tract, which makes, you know, dropping a deuce a little bit more pungent these days than before. More formidable scent. And I know this is real random, and stay with me here. I was on the toilet the other day, and I was talking to Jerry, and we were just having a conversation, and he goes, like, light the incense, light the candle, close it up, like, all right, like, in that moment, the only thing, besides me talking junk to him, only thing I could think was, like, yeah, I love this man so much. He has seen me through so much of my best, my highs and my lows, that I could literally sit butt naked on my toilet, dropping a deuce, and have a conversation with him, and it doesn't feel embarrassing. It doesn't feel like I need to, you know, change up. Like, the level of intimacy and comfort, almost brings me to tears right now. Like, the level of intimacy and comfort that he has made space for me to feel, I cannot replicate that in my singlehood. Besides just being by myself, you know what I mean? Like, just having to be by myself, and I don't miss that loneliness, because there was a loneliness that was pervasive for me when I was single, and it was like I knew there were things that I needed to work on. I knew there's things I needed to do for myself, but it wasn't easy for me to do on my own. Having a partner who could see me at my worst. This man watched me have his babies and bleed all crazy and wear the diaper thingies and, you know, be the most unattractive I've probably ever felt in my life, and nasty and a hot mess. And look, yeah, them little mesh panty things that sent you over to the hospital as you're bleeding to death. Yeah. And, like, this is somebody who looked me in my face while I was going through some of the most uncomfortable positions and parts of my life, and just loved on me. And it was just like, this is a part of the, like, par for the course. Like, I can't envision not having this partnership in my life, because I can honestly say, like, could I have survived as a single woman? Yes, obviously. Like, people do it every day. Could I have thrived as a single woman? Yes, people do it every day. And in fact, I encourage people to do it, especially don't sacrifice and be with somebody who does not, just for the sake of saying you got somebody. You don't want to be by yourself. But because I believe fully that your marriage mate is your partner and your complement, there is not a soul on this planet who compliments me better than he does. There's not a soul on this planet who pushes me to be the best version of myself the way that he does. And I feel like I am a better person for his presence. So no, I don't miss being single, because on my own, I don't have no checks and balance system for me. And this is not speaking for any other single person. For me, I don't have that checks and balance system. Yeah, I could call my mom up and be like, hey, I need some advice. But moms see you in a different way than an intimate partner does. If you know what I'm saying. Like, mom advice is going to be different than husband advice. So to have somebody in my corner who, although he can get on my nerves and can do things to get under my skin, ultimately at the end of the day, I think that the growth that I've seen is directly correlated to his nurturing. And that is why I don't miss being single. That is why I have no desire to return to these streets. I've seen the dating pool. It's pissy. And I have I don't miss the game playing. I don't miss the will they, won't they. I don't miss the I'm texting you, you texting me, you lying about where you at because you really see another John. Like, I don't miss any of the messiness that comes sometimes with dating multiple people. Like, I don't miss it. It's not exciting. It doesn't feel good. I enjoy stability in a way that I never, for a long time, I was searching for stability because it's not something that I had growing up for various reasons. And I remember wanting stability so bad. But once I started to get a taste of it, it was almost like I could not function without some kind of messiness in my life. Because I was so accustomed to messiness and chaos that when things were calm, I was working myself up. And then creating unnecessary issues because I was so used to the chaos. I've gone past that point where I seek peace so much. I seek that stability so much that the idea of having to return back to that. And granted, if I were single now, I'm 30, I'm 37, almost 38. I would not be operating in the same space that I would be at 24 being single. However, I would also probably be like a cat lady. Like, I would probably have 5 cats, and cats are how is that nasty? They're clean. They're self-sufficient.
It'd be cat hair. Cats.
We have a dog who sheds like crazy.
Yeah, but even that be bothering me, but not as much.
So why are cats more gross than dogs? Now that we're here.
Moving on. I like dogs more.
I love both. Anyway, I would probably be.
But having 5 dogs is gross too. Like, why do you need 5 dogs?
I would be a cat mom. I'd have cats. They would keep me company. And that would be what single life would look like for me.
And when
I look at my life right now,
smell like cat
I like the fulfillment.
Like strong cat litter.
Because now I get the joy of dating without
or dog poop.
Can we move on? You still stuck here. Keep up. Anyway, if I were I like the fact that I get to date now, but it's with the same person. I get to enjoy exploring and traveling and doing all of the things. And it's exciting for me, as if it's our first date every time, because I enjoy his company. I enjoy getting to know him. I enjoy how he looks at me. I enjoy how he makes me feel. So I get all of the fun of dating while dating somebody that I get to come home with and sleep with and do all the fun things with and don't have to worry about any of the other things. Versus if I were really in this dating pool right now, I hear y'all stories. Y'all be telling me, and y'all are telling us don't run to the streets, go right back. And I believe y'all wholeheartedly. Trust me. So no, I don't miss it.
And there's stuff that is less glamorous.
Oh yeah.
That you probably that some people probably take for granted, but also for us there's a sense of enjoyment and comfort in it. Today we took our dog to the vet, and that was how we spent half of our Sunday. You know what I'm saying? Was taking our dog to the vet, but it was
really low-key white people.
It was a thing. It was fun. as weird as that may sound, like we didn't do anything exciting.
We did nothing exciting.
But we was just taking a dog, busting it up on the ride,
driving through Atlanta, looking at the different new buildings and houses, like
talking to the dog nurse, talking to the vet, looking at very expensive dog foods.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, stuff like that. Like talking to other people with their pets and stuff. Like it's.
But I'm content. I'm content with that. Like I really, honestly, it's the simplistic things that really do it for me. Like.
It make me think about old school. Like, remember what Will Ferrell was
like? Oh, you talking about going?
So what you got planned for this weekend? He's like, oh, we got a very big day planned for tomorrow. You know, we're gonna go to Home Depot, maybe a little Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know if we'll have enough time.
Like, I dragged him to Walmart with me the other day, and that was like the highlight for me. Like, just having him at Walmart with me, looking at the different things. Like,
but. Drag is a strong word because I'm also one of those type of people who grew up window shopping a lot. Like, so I like going to the store even if I'm not buying anything. Like, I like watching. I'm having fun watching other people spend their money. So like, I didn't buy nothing the other day, but like I'm having a good time looking around and stuff. Like, oh, that's how much this costs. This is what they got new over here. Like, okay, I know when I want to come back for that, I'm coming here. So, like, I enjoy watching other people spend money, being with other people while they spend money, and I also enjoy window shopping. So, for me, a trip to Walmart or any department store, like, she hates shopping more than I do.
I know it doesn't seem like that, but I really do.
I like going out. I like shopping. I like shopping online, but I love shopping in stores. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not really crazy about trying on stuff. Like, that has always been a pet peeve of mine, but I do like buying it, and I have absolutely no problem coming back and returning stuff when it does not fit or I don't like it. Like, I have absolutely no problem with it. So, like, I enjoy that. That's not a bad thing or a chore for me.
As much as I love to go out and do new things with him, especially in light of my restored mobility and stuff, I am quite content and satisfied with the time we spend. It's something special about it to me. And it's just something that brings me comfort. And it's something that I never thought that I would have, because for a long time I felt unworthy of this type of love. I kind of assigned myself to thinking I would always have to have a struggle love, because that's all I had known. It was like these struggle relationships where I was having to like fight for a man's love and fight for his attention amongst multiple women, and like to be loved in a way where I can let my guard down and I don't have to be on high alert. I don't have to be in defense mode. It's trending right now. Everybody want to live that soft life. Like I'm getting to do it. I'm getting to live that soft life that I never thought was meant to be mine, and that's enough for me.
I think what you said right there is a thing too, like letting your guard down. Like that's the other aspect of being single that I don't like. It's like when you lived in the hood all your life and you moved to the suburbs, like you don't want to go back. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to have to look over your shoulder constantly. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to be looking for the angle constantly. And it's the same with dating. Like it's almost like when you take an animal from the wild and domesticate them, like it's hard to go back into the wild and survive. Like you become a mark. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like you can't figure it out and adapt back to that lifestyle. Well, who wants to? Like when you're comfortable with somebody, you know their odds and ends. You know what I mean? You figured out your yin and your yang, your ebb and your flow. Like you can be content. Like, and there's a peace and a comfort, and that peace and comfort also brings that peace of mind brings the ability to focus your attention on other things and be more productive in other areas, because now you have one less thing to worry about. And that in your relationship and your love life and your sex life and your partnership and your friendships, are very key components. So when you can have all of that successfully and in a healthy fashion, and it's not going to be perfect all the time, but when you have that stability there, like you can thrive so much more in other areas. That I think that's where we are now, like where we're maturing as individuals. We're improving ourselves. We're improving our careers. We're able to focus more attention on our children and make sure that they have a healthy home life, a healthy social life, a healthy education. Like it helps divert that energy that you would be focusing on. Or what's she doing right now? Where's she at? Who's she with? Who's she talking to? Where's she going at? Why you telling me you over here but you over there? Like all that stupid stuff. Like, fam, I wish I would ever go back to that. Like if I gotta deal with that again, I'm 42 years old.
I'll say right now, I definitely, and I know this is gonna sound corny for a lot of people, but don't care. I don't miss the confusion that sex with people who are not your mate brings along. Sex is very intimate. I did not always agree with that. I did not always operate from that space, and so that allowed me to operate in a space of sexual liberation and freedom. And instead, that freedom came with soul ties and unnecessary connections and attachments to people that had no business being attached to, and that uncertainty, that muddledness, that lack of clarity and discernment, and just feeling like my spirit was heavy. I don't miss that. I don't want to go back to that. And yeah, I know being single doesn't mean that you have to have sex with anybody, because it definitely does not. And again, for me, in a different space in my life, I would be operating under my faith. So I would be doing what I feel like is best for me as a person who believes in the Bible as a standard. I would be having to be celibate.
Me too.
Living a life of celibacy. I would hope that I could adhere to that. I've failed in the past, but I would hope that is how I would be living my life if I were single. But from just based on the standard of when I was single and how I operated, I don't miss those things. I like knowing that when I lay down with my husband, he means it. There's no question about it. He means it.
It's not one dimensional.
And it's not one dimensional, and it's not about just seeking pleasure. It's something else. I don't even think that sometimes I'm able to put into words what it means. It doesn't mean that I've never had good sex outside my marriage, but the meaning behind it and what makes it good beyond the physical matters way more to me at this point in my life than anything else. So there are just so many different components of being married that I love, and that comes with knowing we've had tribulation, knowing it has not been picture perfect. We never tell people that. We're never like, oh, we're the perfect marriage, because it would be a lie. We've had our ups and downs. We've had our tribulations. We've had our struggles. We've had our moments where we didn't know we were going to stay together or not.
Yeah, we've hurt each other.
But it's
been hurt by each other.
Exactly. So I never come from a space of saying marriage is this perfect thing, because it's just not. But all the work that we put in, all of the working through things that we put in, I don't want to trade it in for singleness. Not at this juncture of my life. I would say, God forbid, anything ever happened and I were to become a widow. That is the only time that I think I would be okay with saying I would return to singleness. I think Lauren London put it best, where she was discussing having been able to experience real love with Nipsey, even with their imperfections. And she's saying, I don't need to find love. I've had the opportunity to experience that, and I don't need to try it again. That is probably how I would feel. I've had the blessing of experiencing real love on this side of things, so that even if something were to happen and I were to become single, not by choice, I would be so satiated and satisfied with the experience that I've had the pleasure of having with my husband that I wouldn't want to go back to dating. And that would be the only time I think that I would be okay with saying, like, yeah, I want to be single again.
And I think a lot of that comes with maturity, right? Because I don't know about you, but I can remember being a kid and like seeing older people and trying to figure out like, Yo, how did y'all get divorced like 20 years ago and you never had nobody else? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how are you just content living by yourself for all these years and stuff like that? Or how did your husband die? You never got somebody, your wife died, you never had nobody else. Like, I couldn't understand that. Like, and there's still some people I don't understand how you are comfortable dwelling in your singleness. Like, I don't. While it was fun, it had a place and time in my youth. Like, I don't desire to be with a bunch of different people. Like, I don't enjoy the idea of that chase and all that. Just dealing with different personalities and different attitudes and mood swings and stuff like that. It's gross for me. It's ghetto. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I just. Like, this is enough. This is complicated enough. Like, I'm saying, like, we both are. Like, there's times I wake up and I'll be, like, in the funk. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, for sure.
And I know I'm not the easiest person to do it in the moments, and vice versa. You know what I mean?
I'm
like,
exceptionally easy
we have
to live in those moments.
Even in those situations, like, we've been together long enough where we know the signs. Like, where it's like, okay, I need to give her some space. Okay, I need to give her an extra hug. I need to give her an extra kiss. I mean, I need to give her some extra attention, you know what I mean? Or I need to give him some space. I need to talk to him later on. Like, I need to come back in an hour or something like that. Like, you know, you figure this stuff out with time, and, like, the thought of trying to start
all over
again is like,
no.
Like, I'd rather not. Like, I can't.
Like,
what are the other options? What's behind door number 2?
We're so close to being together for 20 years. Like, that's, you know, not married, but just together. That's a long time to learn somebody. That's a long time to build habits together. So the idea of having to ever do that again,
it's a long time.
No.
But the other aspect of it is, like, when it's good, when it's enjoyable, that 20 years in a lot of ways feels like it flew by. But on the other hand, it also feels like it's been longer than that. Like, not like it feels longer, but not like in a negative way. Like, it's only been 20 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like this has been a lifetime, but this feels like it's been more than that because of how close we are and how long we've been, how many days we spent together, I guess is what it is. Like, because maybe other people have been together for 20 years and maybe you dated for 5 or however long you dated or whatever, but you weren't together every day. Like, Alicia and I have been together almost every day for like the last 16 years.
Out of the 17 that we've known each other.
And there have been probably months, like maybe 6 months or something. Yeah, probably like for 6 months. It was probably 6 months out of that time where we didn't live together. Yeah. So that makes it feel a lot longer. Yeah. But not necessarily in a negative way. Like, no. It's been, the time has just flown by. But because of those hours we spent together, it feels like it's more than 20 years that we've spent together.
So I guess for those of you watching, if you are married currently, do you miss being single? Why or why not? And if you have had the experience of marriage, what are your thoughts on marriage? If you are still living and operating in your singleness, what are your thoughts on being single in today's climate? What's dating like for y'all? We want to hear it all. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear your opinions. Leave it in the comments for sure. And of course, come to A_J podcast on Instagram and join the conversation. As always, it's a pleasure to come and chat with y'all. I love doing this with this guy. He's my best friend, so
and if it's
he makes it easy.
I'm sorry. And if it's something that y'all want us to talk about specifically, please also leave that in the comments. Hit us on the page. Like, we have no problem coming up with our own topics, but you know, it's always good to get a third party perspective of
Absolutely.
what you feel is interesting or a topic of the moment, and not necessarily pop culture.
It doesn't have to be controversial. Like
No,
we, in
I don't.
case I haven't noticed, we're very laid back and very chill. So
Yeah.
could be anything. If you want to talk about pandas, let us know.
We're not
Let's
talking.
talk about
We're
it.
not talking about Kanye. We're not talking about Kyrie, and we're definitely not talking about Jewish people. So keep that to you. We keep those topics off the table. We'll talk about
So everything else when we do that.
I ain't talking about nothing.
As always, y'all, it's a blast coming to chat. Like I said, he makes it so easy. It's like talking to just us having conversation on the regular. Again, leave your comments down below, like, share, spread the word if you support us, and feel free to cash app us at APYPD LLC.
We got
If you
PayPal,
wanted-
we got Venmo.
Yeah, man, all of the things.
Cash App.
If you ever just feel like you want to bless the donation, we're open to that. As always, you guys, we're not going to tell you when we're coming back because we don't want to lie to you. So we'll see you when we see you next time.